The Golden Crown elders have returned from the sacred forest with a shocker. Olorishado was under a total manipulation spell, but instead of fixing it, they've left the life and death decision to the Golden King. Can he look past the pain and the public shame she caused him? Imagine a king who has protected his queen with everything he has, only to find out she was never truly hers. A spell so deep, a forest secret so dark, it has threatened to tear an entire kingdom apart. Is it possible to forgive a betrayal that wasn't even her choice, or has the damage already gone too far? May we never be victims of forces we cannot see, and may our homes never become a battleground for enemies. Amen. The atmosphere in the land of the Golden Crown was so heavy you could almost touch it. For days, the palace had been as silent as a graveyard, but today, the silence was broken by the arrival of the Golden Crowned elders. They had just returned from the deep forbidden forest, and the dust on their feet told a story of a long spiritual journey. They didn't go there to hunt animals, they went to hunt for the truth behind Olorishado's strange behavior. As they sat before the Golden King, the man who everyone calls the Lion of the Land, you could see the exhaustion on his face. This king has been through fire. He has been embarrassed, reduced in the eyes of the public, and questioned by his own subjects, all because of one person, Olorishado. For years, people asked, why is the king silent? Why is he not taking action while this woman scatters the palace? They didn't know that the king was fighting a battle between his heart and his crown. The elders cleared their throats, and the lead elder spoke with a voice that sounded like dry leaves. Kabiesi, he began. The spell was real. The control was total. The Golden King took a deep breath, a sigh of relief that almost shook the room. For the first time in a long time, there was a confirmation that he wasn't just being weak, he was dealing with a woman who didn't even have a will of her own. The findings showed that everything Olorishado did, the insults, the divisions, the constant wala, wasn't just her. She was like a puppet on a string, manipulated by forces that wanted to see the land of the Golden Crown fall. But here is where the suspense builds. The elders told the Golden King that even though they found the source of the manipulation, they would not be the ones to decide Olorishado's fate. She is your wife. You are the king. You know the best way to treat your household. The decision to keep her or let her go stays with you. Imagine the weight on his shoulders. The Golden King has spent years protecting Olorishado, even when she would roll on the floor, kneeling and begging for forgiveness 1 minute, and then turning into a completely different person the next. He still covered her shame. Remember the time, during the 10-year anniversary, the king was sharing money for people to spray, and when Olorishado asked him for a share in public, he refused. He didn't even look her way. That was the moment everyone knew the Golden King had reached his limits. His heart was full. The palace staff were whispering in corners. Some felt sorry for Olorishado, saying she was just a victim of a spiritual trap. But others were angry, saying that a person who shoots you in the leg while they are drunk still caused you pain that this story cannot fix. The pain, the disappointment, the betrayal, these things are real, spell or no spell. The thing has been reduced because of her. The family has been divided into factions because of her. Even the parents were accusing people like Ogunjaye and other relatives, creating a massive rift in the royal bloodline. As the king sat on his throne, staring at the elders, the question on everyone's lips was, what will he do? Will he wield the power he should have used years ago, or will his love for Olorishado make him overlook the scars on his heart? The tension in the palace was enough to make a brave man tremble. Everyone was waiting for him to speak, but the king remained silent, his eyes fixed on the horizon of the land of the Golden Crown. The Golden King did not utter a single word for what felt like an hour. He just sat there, his fingers tapping slowly on the arm of his throne. You could see the internal war going on in his mind. On one side, he was looking at the woman he had loved and protected against the world. On the other side, he was looking at a kingdom that was tired of the constant wahala. My crown guest friends and families, you need to understand the level of drama that has been happening behind these palace walls. This isn't just about a husband and wife fighting. This is about the soul of the land of the Golden Crown. For a long time, the name of the king was being dragged through the mud because of Olorishado's actions. People were calling him weak. They were saying he had lost his lion nature. But they didn't know that the Golden King was trying to be a shield.
The elders' report revealed that Olori Shadow's mind was like a house that had been hijacked. Think about it. How can someone be so inconsistent? One moment she's crying, rolling on the floor and holding the king's feet, begging for mercy. She would scream, "My king, I didn't mean it. I don't know what came over me." But the very next minute, if the king even mentioned anything about Queen Naomi or the progress of the land of the Golden Crown, her face would turn into something unrecognizable. It was like a switch was flipped by a remote control from the forest. This manipulation caused a massive division in the palace. It wasn't just small talk. The kingdom actually broke into factions. One group was for Olori Shado, another group was for the peace of the palace, and some were just confused. The chaos was so much that even the king's relatives were being dragged into the mess. They started pointing fingers at Ogunje and even some of the aunts. It was a total breakdown of trust. There was a time they even accused a certain uncle who had been a pillar of support. The man had to come out and defend himself with fire in his eyes. He told them plainly, "Instead of you people to thank me for the way I have tried to help the king handle Olori Shado's matters, you are here accusing me." This uncle reminded them that if not for his intervention at a certain point, the situation would have been much worse. But even with all these explanations, the pain in the Golden King's heart remained. This is where the emotion gets deep. Imagine being a king, a man of power, yet you are being embarrassed daily because of the person you share your bed with. The embarrassment had reached a point where it was showing in public. Remember when I told you about that 10-year anniversary? That was a major turning point. The king is a man who knows how to control his emotions, but that day, his bottle of patience broke. When he refused to give Olori Shado money to spray in front of everyone, he was sending a message. He was telling the world, "I am done being the only one protecting this union." Now, the elders have come back from the forest to say, yes, she was under a spell. But does that fix the broken relationships? Does it bring back the years of peace that were stolen? The Golden King looked at the elders and asked a very heavy question. If a man is under his spell and he burns down a house, does the house magically reappear once the spell is broken? The ashes are still there. The loss is still real. The room went cold. The elders had no answer for that. They knew that Olori Shado had caused too much damage. They even mentioned instances upon instances where the king had tried to cover her tracks, acting as if nothing was happening just to keep her dignity intact. He had protected her more than anyone else in history, yet she was the one whose actions led to the breakups and the constant drama. As the deliberation continued, a new piece of information surfaced. Some of the palace staff started talking about Dr. Elizabeth's involvement and how certain medications or treatments were being used during the time Olori Shado was at her worst. Was it just a spell? Or were their physical hands helping the spiritual manipulation? The plot was thickening and the king knew he couldn't just brush this under the carpet. He stood up from his throne, his royal robe sweeping the floor with a sound that felt like a warning. He told the elders that he needed to meditate alone. He needed to decide if he was going to be the husband who forgives a puppet or the king who punishes a traitor. The people outside were waiting. The social media world was buzzing. Everyone wanted to know, is Olori Shado coming back to her full glory, or is this the final end of her reign in the land of the Golden Crown? The Golden King walked towards his private chambers, leaving the elders in a cloud of suspense.
Inside the inner chambers of the palace, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of burning herbs and ancient wood. The Golden King was not alone. He was surrounded by the heavy silence of his ancestors. He was thinking about everything the Golden Crown elders had revealed. My crown-yeast friends and families, can you imagine the trauma? To realize that the person you've been sleeping next to, the woman you defended against your own family, was actually a vessel for something dark and calculated. The Golden King began to recall specific moments that now made perfect sense. He remembered how Olori Shado would sometimes stare into space for hours, her eyes blank, only to wake up and start a fight over nothing. He remembered the division she caused between him and his loyal subjects. It wasn't just small disagreements, it was a systematic destruction of his kingdom. But the biggest pain wasn't just the spell, it was the betrayal of trust.
You see, in the land of the Golden Crown, loyalty is everything. And while the king was busy protecting Olorishado's image, she was busy tearing down the structures he had built. There was a time when the pressure was so much that the royal family almost split into two. The parents were crying, the aunts were screaming, and even the loyal servants were confused about who to follow. Think about the TikTok Olori and the role she played in all of this. There were so many voices, so many opinions, and so much noise. People were asking, why is the Golden King allowing his palace to turn into a marketplace of insults? They didn't see the king's private tears. They didn't see him trying to talk sense into a woman who was clearly not home in her own mind. The Golden King remembered a particular night when Olorishado had gone on a rampage, accusing everyone of trying to kill her. She even pointed fingers at Queen Naomi, saying she was the one behind her misfortunes. But the king knew Queen Naomi's heart. He knew she was focused on the progress of the land of the Golden Crown. Yet, he had to keep quiet to avoid making the fire bigger. He was playing the role of a firefighter in a palace where someone was constantly pouring petrol. Now, let's talk about the forest discovery. The elders didn't just find a spell. They found evidence of a planned manipulation that was meant to last forever. They found that the target was never just Olorishado. The target was the Golden King himself. If they could control the wife, they could weaken the king, and it almost worked. The king's reputation had been dragged so low that people were beginning to mock him on social media. But as the king sat in his chamber, he realized something. Even if she was manipulated, the damage done to the land of the Golden Crown was physical. The broken hearts of the people who were wrongly accused, like Ogunjaye and the others, were still bleeding. The embarrassment he felt when he had to snub her in public at the 10-year anniversary was a scar that wouldn't fade easily. He called for his most trusted advisor. He wanted to know the state of the people. The advisor told him plainly, Kabiesi, the people are tired. They love you, but they cannot live in a house where the roof is always on fire. Whether it is a spell or a choice, the fire must be put out. This hit the Golden King hard. He realized that being a king means making decisions that the man inside him might find difficult. He loved Olorishado, or at least the woman he thought she was before the darkness took over. But he also loved his people. He also loved the land of the Golden Crown. The question then shifted, is it possible to cure Olorishado and bring back the peace, or is the bridge already burned to ashes? The Golden King knew that whatever he decided next would change the history of the land of the Golden Crown forever. He stood up, grabbed his staff, and headed back to the hall where the elders were waiting. The look on his face was no longer one of confusion. It was the look of a king who had finally found his roar.
When the Golden King stepped back into the grand hall, the silence was so deep you could hear a pin drop. The Golden Crown elders, the palace chiefs, and the few trusted family members present all held their breath. They saw a different fire in the king's eyes, the kind of fire that only burns when a man has moved past his pain and found his purpose. The king looked at the elders and spoke with a voice that echoed through the pillars of the land of the Golden Crown. He thanked them for their journey into the forest and for confirming what his heart had suspected for a long time. But then, he dropped a heavy statement that moved everyone. He said, a king's first marriage is to his kingdom. If my wife is under his spell and she destroys the throne, am I to sit on the floor with her and cry? Or am I to rebuild the throne so my people can have a leader? He made it clear that while he understood the manipulation Olorishado went through, the consequences of her actions were not spiritual. They were real. The division she caused among the families, the way she made the palace a laughingstock, and the way she tried to push Queen Naomi out of the picture, these were things the people had suffered. The king acknowledged that he had protected her for too long, and in doing so, he had allowed the spell to affect the entire land of the Golden Crown. The Golden King then announced his deliberation. He didn't call for her head, but he didn't call for a celebration either. He decided that Olorishado would be sent for deep spiritual and psychological cleansing, far away from the palace and the public eye.
She would no longer have the power to influence the affairs of the throne until the land itself declares her clean. But the most shocking part was his apology. The Golden King, in his greatness, apologized to those who were wrongly accused during the Wahala. He reached out to people like Ogunjaye and the other relatives who were dragged into the mess. He realized that because he was trying to protect his wife, he had almost lost his most loyal people. As the meeting ended, word began to spread. Some people were happy that the king finally took a stand. Others were crying for Olorishado, saying she was just a victim. But one thing was certain, the lion was back. No longer would he allow the palace to be a place of drama and factions. My crown gist friends and families, this story teaches us a big lesson about life and leadership. You can love someone, but you must never let that love become a blindfold that allows your house to burn down. The Golden King chose his crown over his emotions, and for the first time in years, peace began to settle over the land of the Golden Crown. Important notice, before we go, my crown gist friends and families, I must remind you that all the information I just shared is based on alleged rumors and unverified reports making the rounds on social media. These are all stories from the internet and they should not be taken as the absolute truth yet. We are only bringing you the gist as it is being discussed in the digital streets. What do you think about the Golden King's decision? Did he do the right thing by sending Olorishado away, or should he have kept her and fought the spell by her side? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it.